Well, the situation in Israel from our text in this time period is that they are going to have a king. God told Samuel to make them a king, put a king over them. We're not told at that point, and I'm talking about at the end of chapter 8, it says, the Lord said to Samuel, heed their voice and make them a king. We're not told what Samuel knows and doesn't know. What we are told is here in chapter 9, in the text we're going to look at tonight, we're going to pick up in verse 11 in just a minute, that the Lord does speak to Samuel and tells him, I'm sending someone to you. So let's back up and just look at this situation. That's the task in front of Samuel, is to make them a king, to set up a monarchy. That's a tall task. That's a big job for anyone to do. I'm sure Samuel was thinking, wow, where do we start? What do we do? How does this happen? The writer of Samuel reverts back to now just talking about a story about a man of Benjamin and some donkeys that are lost. We later find out that their search for these donkeys leads them literally to the doorstep of Samuel. And so then we're going to see what happens next. But I touched on this last week about how God is bringing people and intersecting their paths for a purpose. This is not accident. Even the donkeys, even the fact that the donkeys wandered off, God was guiding those donkeys to wander off to create a scenario where Saul has to begin searching for them, and he ends up in Ramah at Samuel's doorstep. So don't think that any of this is accidental. It's not accidental at all. God is working in the details. I just want to continue on with the story, and there's a lot we can say about the story, but I also just want you to carry that thought with you as we go throughout the text, is that things don't happen in your life by accident either. I get on my own nerves, okay? And other people get on my nerves too, I'll just be honest with you. And I get on my nerves. But complaining, do you realize how much time I've spent complaining? And I know other people spend time complaining and griping and being negative about things. How do you not know that you're complaining directly against God, directly against the Lord, for some things in your life are the way they are because God has allowed them to be that way? So who are we complaining? We're complaining about it, but we ought to be really, really careful that we might want to consider that God has a purpose for what's happening in our lives. And I'm not saying that everything that happens in your life is comfortable. I'm not saying that everything in your life is going to be, just perfect and ideal all the time. It's not. I don't think Samuel is living in an ideal situation either. He could do a lot of complaining right now. How dare these people? How dare that? God has already told Samuel, they've not rejected you, they've rejected me. There's something to complain about, isn't there? Samuel could complain that, well, it's not my fault, but they have sure rejected God. And so my next message, my next sermon that I'm going to preach about rejecting God. I mean, he could go off on them, couldn't he? God's told him what they've done. He has every reason. He has the information, he has the facts, and he can do the complaining. Here's the thing. Why? What good will it do? What good will it do to complain in this situation? God is working in his life. Same thing in your life. What good will it do to complain about a lot of things? We might just want to be quiet sometimes, pray about it, talk to the Lord about it, seek understanding in it. I don't think there's anything wrong when you're in a challenging situation to seek the Lord's help in understand. Lord, help me to understand this. I don't like it. I'm not comfortable. I don't understand it. It's not good. Lord, help me to understand it. Instead of just complaining, just spewing off at the mouth and saying every negative thing you can come up with. Well, there we are. That's where we are in verse 11. The first thing I want you to see, real simple outline tonight, not anything going to knock you off your feet, but the arrival. It's just the arrival. The arrival, and we're coming to this place called Ramah. The arrival at Ramah. That's where Samuel lives, and that's where Saul and his servant have arrived. They've gotten there. Notice what it says in 11 through 13, and you see that Saul and his servant has a little conversation, a little discussion with these young maidens. These are probably some teenage girls that are fetching water and preparing for this great feast that they're about to observe, this sacrificial ceremony of some kind that's occurring. Saul just stumbles into this. He just walks up at this certain time that he was looking for donkeys, and next thing you know, he is seated at the table next to Samuel, and they're fixing to put a crown on his head. He was looking for donkeys, and he finds the monarchy. He finds the crown. Notice in 11 through 13, it says, as they went up the hill to the city, they met some young women going out to draw water and said to them, is the seer here? Now, we've already been told back in verse 9, I think it is, that a prophet and a seer are the same thing. The seer is the old word for it. The prophet's the new terminology for it. Here, Saul says, is the seer here? And they answered them and said, yes, there he is, just ahead of you. He's right there. He just passed by, and there he goes walking up the hill. You can see him right there in front of you. And then they say, hurry now, for today he came to this city because there is a sacrifice of the people today on the high place. Well, look at the luck. Not luck, is it? At just the right time, God leads Saul to this place, and lo and behold, they're having some type of observance. Notice in verse 13, as soon as you come into the city, you will surely find him before he goes up to the high place to eat. For the people will not eat until he comes, because he must bless the sacrifice. Afterward, those who are invited will eat. Now therefore, go up, for about this time you will find him. So he's given directions. And the young ladies identify Samuel, positive ID, there he is. They point him out. Well, notice what happens in verse 14. They come into Ramah. Look at verse 14. So they went up to the city, and as they were coming into the city, there was Samuel coming out toward them on his way up to the high place. So as they're going up, here comes Samuel. Not an accident. This is a word we might use is this is just inevitable, isn't it? It's just going to happen. You know, I have searched for the Lord's will in my life, in my ministry at different times, and it's difficult. You're looking for direction, and this is how you know that the Lord is in it, when there's no other way. When there's no other way, when you find yourself right there, the Lord is most likely in it. And this is one of those situations where he can't get away from Samuel. I mean, it seems like everywhere he goes, there's Samuel. The second thing I want you to see, so that's how they intersect. There he is. The second thing I want you to see in 15 through 17 is the disclosure. When I disclose something, I am revealing it to you, right? You might, if you're looking at a popular way that term is used is when you're going to buy a home and you have an inspection done on the home, and the seller is obligated to disclose or tell the prospective buyer if there's anything that's been done to the house. And so they must, legally, they have to disclose things. Yeah, we had the foundation, we had to have it jacked up, and it was cracked, and all that. We had a new roof on it a couple years ago, and it flooded 3 or 4 years. It's things like that you would disclose, you would reveal to someone. Well, the Lord reveals who is the anointed king. The Lord does this to Samuel. The Lord speaks to him. Notice what it says in verse 15. Now the Lord, this is kind of like a little bit of an effect in the story of you're focused on these young ladies and Samuel going up to this place, and then the writer is kind of giving you kind of an off to the side information that you're going to need for the story. And it's kind of like this. Now the Lord had told Samuel, right? It's kind of a little digression, a little side information for us as the reader to be able to follow the story. Now we know what Samuel knows. And what Samuel knows is that it says the Lord had told Samuel in his ear the day before Saul came, saying, tomorrow about this time I will send you a man from the land of Benjamin. Let me stop right there because there's something very important in the whole story. God sent Saul there. It's not me. I'm not saying that. What the Bible is saying that. The Bible is telling you that it's not my opinion. God sent Saul there. That's what it says. And he told Samuel he's coming. So Samuel trying to figure out how this is all going to work out. How in the world are we going to come up with a king? How is this going to happen? Well, because God's going to make it happen. God sent Saul to Samuel. And you shall anoint him commander over my people Israel, that he may save my people from the hand of the Philistines. For I have looked upon my people, because their cry has come to me. So a couple things here. You see a lot of information, especially in verse 16. You see the time. It will be tomorrow, which is now today in our story. Then the second thing, you find out some kind of identification. Well, he's a Benjamite. The guy you're looking for is a Benjamite. So look out for him coming tomorrow, right? Which is today. And then the action is you're going to anoint him. That Samuel, that's what you're going to do. You're going to anoint him as king over my people. Okay? Keep that in mind. Some of these details you might be reading too fast and you might not get it. My people is repeated 4 times in 2 verses. Anytime you see repetition of that manner, the writer is trying to tell you something. And let me go ahead and tell you. These people are not going to belong to Samuel, and these people are not going to belong to Saul. These people belong to God. So what a tall order it is for both of these men. Samuel here is leading God's people. Whose people are they? They're God's people. They're not Samuel's people. Saul will be king over God's people. They will always belong to God. They will not belong to Saul. Now, there's another term, and I hate to get ticky-tacky with you, but it's called a regent. He's not really a king. He's a regent king, which means he's a king by agency of a higher power. And that higher power is God. They belong to him. So Saul may sit there on a throne with a crown on his head, and he might be called king, but these people belong to God. That will, you cannot miss that, especially for the rest of the story, because then when God deals with Saul in the way that he does, then you'll understand why he deals with Saul, because he is leading God's people. And when you're leading God's people, when you're doing anything with God's people, who do you answer to? You don't answer to the people, you answer to God about it. So Saul has to answer to God. He's going to be held accountable to God for how he leads God's people. It's so important. And all of us are held accountable for how we behave with God's people. So there you go. So that the purpose there is given that. You see that? That's purpose. This is the purpose. That he may save my people from the hand of the Philistines. Sounds like a military mission, doesn't it? To save the people from the hands of the Philistines. Now look at this. Here's a reason. Here's God's reason. I have looked upon my people because their cry has come to me. So there you see a lot of information there in verse 16 about how God identified the king that was coming and told us what his purpose would be, and told us the action that Samuel has to take and the reason for it. Now, this is a really important, verse 17 is so important. It says, so when Samuel saw Saul, the Lord said to him, there he is. You see that? There he is. God is almost like God is pointing to him and saying, there he is, the man of whom I spoke to you. This one shall reign over my people. Interesting word, reign. I didn't know this until the other day, and I'm looking words up. This word, Hebrew word, is only translated reign here. It's translated in other places in prison, shut up, not like shut up, stop talking, but shut up like bound up, closed up. In fact, I'll read you a few examples. In 2 Kings 17:4, it says, therefore the king of Assyria shut him up and bound him in prison, which means locked him up. Now, let's don't lose sight of our train of thought here. It says, this one shall reign over my people. Well, another way it's used is in Jeremiah 33:1. It says, more of the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah a second time while he was still shut up in the court of the prison. In Genesis 20:18, it says, for the Lord had closed up, closed is the word, same as reign, all the wombs of the house of Abimelech because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. This word is used 46 times in the Old Testament. It's only translated reign here. And it's almost as if God is hinting or saying to Samuel, this one is going to hinder my people. This one is going to hold back and restrain my people. That's how the word is used. It's out of 46 occurrences, most of the time it's used in a negative connotation. Only a few times where it has any kind of positive sense at all. And so when it says, this one shall reign over my people, we're really not that excited about it when we hear those words, because it's almost hinting that this thing about Saul is not going to be a good thing for his people. In fact, I think what you're going to see is that Saul becomes the instrument of God's judgment against Israel. They're asking for a king like all the other nations have. They're asking for the wrong thing. They're asking to be worldly. You don't have to wonder about how God feels about that. So there you go. Notice the last thing I want you to see is the preparation. The preparation. Samuel begins to prepare Saul. Saul seems like a good student at this point. He seems to be listening. He seems to be, you just kind of get the idea from the text that he's wide-eyed and his mouth's probably open a little bit and wondering what in the world's going on and how is all this stuff is happening so quickly. What's going on, But Samuel begins to prepare him. And so notice in 18 and 19 what it says. It says, then Saul drew near to Samuel in the gate and said, please tell me, where is the seer's house? Are y'all catching this? Are y'all catching this? He's talking to him. In fact, it says, Samuel answered Saul and said, I am the seer. He sounds a little dull. He sounds a word that is a real nice word, obtuse. He sounds a little, let me just be kind of ugly. He sounds dumb right now, really dumb. He was just told by the young ladies, there he is. See him going up the hill? There he is. And then he passed him when he was going up the hill. He passed him. He was asking, and then he's asking him, Where is the seer? Well, he's right. You're talking. Samuel says, you're talking to the guy. I'm the guy. So there you see his identity. You see the schedule. He says, go up before me to the high place, for you shall eat with me today, and tomorrow I will let you go and will tell you all that is in your heart. Samuel doesn't flinch, does he? I mean, he even though Saul is coming across as like out of it and like not really sharp at all, Samuel just moves on, and he doesn't call him out for it, doesn't make fun of him for it. He just keeps on rolling, and he says, I'm going to tell you everything that's in your heart, and here's what we're going to do today. Well, notice in 20 and 21, you see the Lord's work here in 20 through 21. But as for your donkeys that were lost 3 days ago, do not be anxious about them, for they have been found. Now, on to more important things, right? The donkeys are not important. What's more important is that, on whom is all the desire of Israel? Is it not on you and on all your father's house? This is, Samuel here is attempting to redirect Saul's attention to the more important question of his life. Not where the donkeys are, but for the whole desire of the nation. And so you see that the Lord's plan for Israel is beginning to be unfolded to him. Look at Saul's response in verse 21. It says, Saul answered and said, am I not a Benjamite of the smallest of the tribes of Israel, and my family the least of all the families of the tribe of Benjamin? Why then do you speak like this to me? Well, he talks about his social status, doesn't he? He talks about how my family is. So, first of all, Benjamin, would that be, the likely choice of a king of this country? The tribe, you may not remember this, but the tribe of Benjamin was in fighting with itself, and a lot of it had dwindled in number. So it's a small tribe because they've had a lot of issues in the tribe of Benjamin. You'll find that in Joshua. But also, he says, not only am I from Benjamin, but I'm my family is, out of all the families of the tribe of Benjamin, my family shouldn't be the one that would be chosen for a king. So he's got this, what's that called? Self-deprecation thing going on here, where he's real humble and he brings himself down to that's good. That's a good thing there. He's being very humble. At the end of verse 21, he says, why then do you speak like this to me? And this question that Saul is asking is, he's wanting to explore his worthiness here. I mean, why am I worthy? Why am I worthy for this selection? And we're going to stop right there, and I want to leave you with, and if our musicians want to begin preparing, you don't have to come right this minute, but if you want to get ready, we'll have a song of invitation in just a few minutes. But, since chapter 8, we've been hearing this phrase, a king like all the other nations have. And what it does is it speaks to our desires. It speaks to their desires. Any question like that, you can still apply it to yourself. It speaks to, what do we want? That's a question, really, that will determine what course in life that you take. It will determine how you talk to people. It will determine where you go. It will determine what you do based upon what are your desires in life. Is it to be like someone? Is it to achieve a certain status? And that's actually not a bad desire, unless you're looking at the wrong person. If you want to be like someone, I hope it's someone good. If you want to achieve a certain status, I hope that you can find the blueprint in the Bible. Those things are not bad in themselves. But where we go wrong is looking at the wrong things and wanting to be like the wrong things, the wrong people, the wrong status. Let me give you, and I know I sound like a real goody two-shoes, self-righteous a little bit when I say this, but I have to tell you the truth. The best model and example you can look at is the Lord. He's the best example. You want to be like someone? Be like the Lord. Me and Philip were down here talking about all these coaches and stuff, and man, they're like, wow, millionaires and rock stars, and you know, we might have favorite actors and singers that we like and things like that. It might be your next door neighbor you want to be like. I don't know. Might be someone you work with. Might be a family member that you just have always looked up to and want to be like them. I got news for you. People will let you down. People will disappoint you. But the Lord will never disappoint you. What about status? You know, I want to be, I'll be happy if I can just have this and I can have that and I can be perceived as this or that, whatever it is, right? You just fill in the blank. Everybody's kind of got their own ideas in their mind. How about a life that's characterized by faith? How about that? You know, we talked about that on Wednesday night. The question the disciples were asking was the wrong question. Increase our faith. Jesus didn't answer that question. What he says is you need to be faithful. That's what you need to be. Your quantity of faith is not the right angle to come at this. You don't need more faith, because if you have faith as a grain of a mustard seed, you've got enough. Here's the real question. Are you going to be faithful? Are you going to serve him faithfully? Well, in my opinion, that's a status. Status is faithfulness. You'll say, he's faithful. You'll say, she's faithful. Well, dear friend, if you say that about somebody or someone says that about you, that's who you are. That's a status to aspire to, not what the world wants. The world wants, what the world wants is not what we should spend all of our energy and all of our time trying to attain. There's bigger and better things to shoot for in life. One of them is to be more like Jesus every day. And the second one is to be faithful as you can be. Now, faithfulness is not just getting your shoes on and coming to church. That's not all there is to faithfulness. You know, there's a lot of talk about integrity. Doing the right thing when no one is holding you accountable. Now, we're all held accountable, but there's times when people are not looking. There's times in our life where we can do things and we can do them and no one will know about it. But let me ask you, does really no one know about it? That's silly, isn't it? Who are we fooling? God knows about it. He's the most important one. So those moments where I think I can get away with this, I think I can do this, I think I can do that, and it won't hurt anyone. Well, the question is it right or wrong? So faithfulness is more than putting your shoes on. Faithfulness is doing the right thing when no one is watching you. Hey, if the only time you're faithful is to get attention from someone else, you're trying to please the wrong people. Please the one who's always watching instead of some of the people that are sometimes watching. God's always watching. And by the way, he's the one who's judging. He's the one who's rewarding. He's the one who is, you're his people, my people. Well, let me leave you with this. We can't always understand why things work out the way they do. I know you've been there. You've thought about things in your life and you know, you're just baffled sometimes and think, boy, why did that work out the way it did? Well, in chapters 8 and 9, you see that all these things working out in the manner that they do because God is working those things out. God is doing that. Kind of like how I started a while ago, we get into these ruts of complaining and negativity about things that maybe God is doing something in your life that could be a great thing if you would quit looking at it in the wrong way. There's probably a better way to look at it instead of just being negative about it. The Lord told Samuel, I am sending a Benjamite to you. Who can tell who or what God may be sending into your life? I don't know. There's sometimes there's things that come from God, and there's sometimes that I think things come from Satan. But here's something that you can keep with you. The Lord is with you. The Lord is always with you. You don't have to be a special Bible character like David or Jacob or Abraham for it to be said that the Lord was with Jacob. He's with you too. That's the way God works. The Lord is with you. So as you try to understand things that are happening in your life, I don't understand, my head's spinning, what's going on? I don't get it. Stop, meditate on it, pray about it, ask the Lord for understanding. It may be one of the biggest things that's ever happened to you. If you consult and look for God's will in the things that's going on in your life. Let's have a song of invitation, musicians.